Good morning, dear students. We are going to discuss cerebellum. Okay, so we have already done with the spinal cord and brainstem. So in this mid-sagittal section of the head and neck region, you can see inside the vertebral canal, you can see the spinal cord, and this area is brainstem where we have medulla oblongata, midbrain and pons, right? Medulla oblongata, pons and midbrain. This is the order from downwards to upwards. So behind the brainstem, you have a small brain which is called as cerebellum. Okay, so this is cerebrum, which is maximum filling of the cranial cavity is with the cerebrum. Okay, apart from the cerebrum, we have a small brain which is equally important, though small in size. This is cerebellum. Okay. So behind the brainstem, we will see the position of cerebellum. Okay, then. So now see here, this is the mid-sagittal section of brain where you are finding midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata as brainstem. So behind the brainstem, we have cerebellum. So between the brainstem and cerebellum, there is an empty space, empty cavity, which is actually called as fourth ventricle. So this is the part of hindbrain, cerebellum, situated in the posterior cranial fossa. Here we have a tent-shaped fold of dura mater, if you remember, that is tentorium cerebelli. Above the tent, we have the occipital lobe of the cerebrum. Below the tent, we have the cerebellum. So behind pons and medulla, separated by a cavity. The name of this cavity is fourth ventricle. So this is the introduction about the cerebellum. Okay. Now see this pons, medulla oblongata, and above we have midbrain, right? So this whole brain stem has connections with the cerebellum by means of peduncles. We have three such peduncles like superior cerebellar peduncle, which is connecting the midbrain to the cerebellum. We have middle cerebellar peduncle, which is connecting pons to the cerebellum. Inferior cerebellar peduncle, which is connecting the medulla oblongata with the cerebellum. Hence, we have three cerebellar peduncles: superior, middle, and inferior cerebellar peduncle. Okay. Now, when you see the cut section of the cerebellum, it has gray matter which is outside. Okay, and the white matter which is inside. The gray matter is so much folded. Okay, so and medulla, this is actually called as cortex area outside, medulla area inside. So inside the white matter, we have collection of gray matter which are actually called as cerebellar nuclei. Okay, four pairs of deep cerebellar nuclei, we will see they are embedded in the white matter. Okay, so in the medullary core, core is nothing but center. In the medulla, we will see the collection of gray matter which are called as cerebellar nuclei. So we have such four nuclei which are called as DEFG is the code. We have dentate nucleus, we have nucleus globosus, we have fastigious nucleus and emboliform nucleus. So these are the collection of gray matter within the white matter of the medulla of the cerebellum. Cerebellum as such can be as an essay question. If not, you will see the cerebellar peduncles may come as a 5 marks question, and this cerebellar nuclei is usually 3 marks question. So you should be able to name this nuclei. Okay, then when you see this cortex, which is the outer area, it is thrown into numerous transverse folds by means of this folia, separated by fissures. So these are the fissures. So folia and fissures provide large surface area for the accommodation of numerous neurons in limited space. Though it is a small brain, because of so many folds, you will see the number of neurons in limited space will increase. So 15% of cortex is exposed to the surface and rest 85% is buried at the bottom and in the walls of fissures. Now see, this is the medulla. So the medullary core is composed of incoming and outgoing fibers projecting to and fro from cerebellar cortex. So the white matter entering into the central axis, this is the white matter which is entering into the central axis of cerebellum. So of each cerebellar folium resembles branching of tree. You can see it looks as though it is branching of tree. Hence, this type of branching pattern is called as arbor vitae cerebelli. Arbor vitae cerebelli. So we know like the gray matter is situated outside in the cut section and white matter is situated inside. But within the white matter, we have the collection of nuclei, which is nothing but the gray matter. Within the white matter, which is nothing but we have 4 nuclei. So from medial to lateral, the nuclei are the nucleus fastigius. Then we have nucleus globosus and emboliform nucleus. Because it is present in the center, they are called as nucleus interpositus. Nucleus interpositus. Okay. Then the outside quite big nucleus we have, that is the nucleus dentatus, largest in primates including man. So I gave you a code for easy remembering: D, E, F, G. Okay, so these are the nuclei, deep cerebellar nuclei what we see. Okay, now so we will see further. So when you see the anatomy of cerebellum, it has 2 laterally large hemispheres. This is one hemisphere, right hemisphere. This is one more hemisphere. Between the 2 cerebellar hemisphere, there is one midline structure which is joining these 2 hemispheres. So this midline structure is vermis. So cerebellar surface is divided by numerous curves. So these are actually called as fissures. So we have many fissures, like there is one fissure which is labeled here. You can see this is the horizontal fissure, okay, which is quite clearly visible. You call it as conspicuous, okay, extending from the dorsolateral border, that means this area, from the dorsolateral border of each hemisphere to the middle of the cerebellar peduncle. Okay, so now see here. Vallicula, I will tell you, these are the names which are given to the subdivisions of vermis. So basically this horizontal fissure which is moving up to the like middle cerebellar peduncle to vallicula separates this into the superior surface and inferior surface. That means cerebellum is viewed from top, you call it as superior surface. It is viewed from bottom, you call it as inferior surface. Okay. Now, external surface of cerebellum, the deepest fissure in the vermis, you can see this fissure is primary fissure which curves ventrolaterally in the superior surface of cerebellum to meet the horizontal fissure. Okay, so this is primary fissure which is also called as fissura prima, and this surface is viewed from top, hence it is called as superior surface. And the view which you see from down, you call it as inferior surface. So in the superior surface, we are finding the primary fissure which divides the cerebellum into the anterior lobe and posterior lobe. Okay. Now, see, this is the primary fissure. Okay, and this is the horizontal fissure. Okay, so primary fissure which is viewed from superior aspect divides the cerebellum into anterior lobe and posterior lobe. This is right cerebellar hemisphere. This is left cerebellar hemisphere. Between the 2 hemispheres, we have vermis. Okay. Now, as I already told you, we are finding the cerebellum is folding on itself to form so many fissures, right? So it forms a vital tree of life which is called as arbor vitae, tree of life. It is the white matter of the cerebellum. It is so called because it looks like a tree. Okay, it brings sensory and motor sensation to and from cerebellum. So this also we have discussed: superior cerebellar peduncle, middle cerebellar peduncle, and inferior cerebellar peduncle, connecting midbrain, pons and medulla oblongata respectively. Okay, you can see this is the cut section of the cerebellum, and you are finding this is superior cerebellar peduncle, this is inferior cerebellar peduncle. Few names of the vermis are shown here, that is the like nodule and all. Flocculus is one more lobe we will see as we proceed. So in the center of the cerebellum, this area is actually called as vermis. Okay. So basically, when you see, this is the superior view I said, right? When you see it from above. Okay. When you see from above, you call this as the superior surface. And when you see from below, you call this surface as the inferior surface. So this first picture is showing us the inferior surface. Second picture is showing us the superior surface. So overall, if you look at this picture, three different colors have been used. That shows basically we have three lobes in cerebellum. Okay, we know this lobe that is right in front of the primary fissure, we have named it as anterior lobe. Behind the primary fissure, we have named it as posterior lobe. And if you observe, posterior lobe is not only seen from superior surface, posterior lobe is also seen from inferior surface. That means it is quite big. Okay, that means it is extending from here till here completely. Okay, so this surface is the like lobe is the posterior lobe. So apart from the anterior and posterior lobe, there is one more small lobe which is shown in blue color. So this lobe is actually called as flocculonodular lobe. This blue in color. So overall, how many lobes cerebellum has? 3 lobes. So anterior lobe, posterior lobe, and flocculonodular lobe. Okay, according to functional evolution, so evolutionary subdivisions of cerebellum are, it has been divided into like paleocerebellum, neocerebellum, and archicerebellum. Okay, then now archicerebellum. So that is most of the posterior lobe. It is actually the vestibular part. It is formed by flocculonodular lobe and associated fastigious nuclei. Okay, so embryologically, the archicerebellum is oldest. Okay, part of cerebellum. It receives afferent fibers from vestibular apparatus of internal ear. That means this archicerebellum is chiefly concerned with the maintenance of equilibrium, because it will have connections with the internal ear via vestibulocerebellar tracts. Vestibular apparatus we have learned in ear chapter, and this is the cerebellum, and the connections are vestibulocerebellar tracts. Okay, then. So now archicerebellum, the other connections, like it is connected with the vestibular and reticular nuclei of brainstem through inferior cerebellar peduncles. The afferent vestibular fibers pass from vestibular nuclei in pons and medulla to the cortex of ipsilateral flocculonodular lobe. Actually, what are the tracts in the peduncles? We have one table also from where you can learn. So just to complete the topic, I am telling you all the points. So efferent cortical Purkinje fibers project from, that efferent means they start from the cerebellum and they move from distant areas like the internal ear, and also we have fastigial nucleus which projects to vestibular nuclei and reticular formation. Okay, so next what we have is, as it is the oldest part, it affects the limbic system as well. Okay, so where we have certain nuclei like mesencephalic nucleus, lentiform nucleus. So it is connected bilaterally via descending vestibulospinal and reticulospinal tracts. Now coming to the paleocerebellum, so the spinal part, it is formed by midline vermis surrounding paravermis. On either side of vermis, we call it as paravermis. Then we have nucleus globosus and emboliformis. Okay, it receives afferents like from the, we have So afferent proprioceptive impulses from muscle spindles, what you have studied in physiology, and also tendons via spinocerebellar tracts, mainly dorsal and ventral tracts mainly. It sends efferents to red nucleus of midbrain. So it is concerned with muscle tone. So archicerebellum was with the vestibular apparatus, paleocerebellum with controlling of muscle tone. Okay, then. So it is concerned with muscle tone and posture, the paleocerebellum. So the afferent spinal fibers consist of dorsal and ventral spinocerebellar tract, which start from muscle, joint and cutaneous receptors to enter the cortex of ipsilateral vermis, that is the same side of vermis, and paravermis via inferior and superior cerebellar peduncles. The efferent cortical fibers, they start from the cerebellum, right? So they start from globose nucleus, emboliform nucleus, okay, via superior cerebellar peduncle to contralateral red nucleus of midbrain to give descending rubrospinal tract. Okay, rubro means red nucleus to the spinal column. Now, the last part we have is neocerebellum, which is very well developed in human beings. So, it has like the remaining largest part of the cerebellum, which includes two most cerebellar hemispheres, the dentate nucleus. It receives afferent impulses from cerebral cortex, pons via cerebropontocerebellar pathway. Then it sends efferents to ventrolateral nucleus of thalamus. It controls voluntary movements and muscle coordination. Then, so neocerebellum is concerned with muscular coordination. It receives afferents from cerebral cortex involved in planning of movements to pontine nuclei. Okay. So cross the opposite side via middle cerebellar peduncle. They cross like this. Okay. Then, so to end in the lateral parts of the cerebellum, you call it as cerebropontocerebellar tract. That means starts in the cerebrum, passes via pons and ends in the cerebellum. Okay, hence you call it as cerebropontocerebellar tract. So neocerebellar efferents, they start from the cerebellum, project to dentate nucleus, which in turn project to contralateral. That means opposite side red nucleus. Okay, red nucleus we find in the midbrain and ventrolateral nucleus of thalamus, then giving to motor cortex of the frontal lobe, giving rise to descending corticospinal and corticobulbar pathways. The efferents of dentate nucleus, they form major part of superior cerebellar peduncle. The other types of divisions we have, like you should have studied even in physiology, the afferent regions, we have spinocerebellum, pontocerebellum, efferent regions, vestibulocerebellum, lateral hemisphere. So now from this picture, summary of classification. So phylogenetic ontogenic development, we have classified the cerebellum into archicerebellum, paleocerebellum, neocerebellum, right? Afferent connection wise also we have vestibulo, spino and the pontocerebellum. Okay, classification by efferent connections, we have vermis, which is towards the center, paravermal region and cerebellar hemispheres. Now you can see this is the cut section of cerebellum. So in this cut section of cerebellum, you are finding the outer area is gray matter, okay, and the central area is white matter. So if you recollect the histology of CNS, where we have studied the histological layers, outside I said we have the gray matter, right? So the gray matter, we have three layers. If you remember, MPG is the code: molecular layer, Purkinje cell layer and the granular layer. So this outer area is cortex and the central is white core medulla. Okay. So within the medulla also we have gray matter collection of nuclei, dentate nucleus and all. Okay. Now, the subdivisions of lobes. Basically, how many lobes I said? We have three lobes, right? Flocculonodular lobe, anterior lobe and posterior lobe. Now let us see the subdivisions of vermis. So this midline earthworm-like structure which divides cerebellum into the right and left cerebellar hemispheres is vermis. So this vermis, the part of the vermis called as nodulus, is in connection with the flocculus. Okay. Then this is the subdivision of the flocculonodular lobe. For our convenience, it has been shown in blue color. Then subdivisions of anterior lobe. So the anterior lobe, the parts of vermis we have is first is lingula, which will not have any corresponding cerebellar hemisphere. So this area is central lobule, okay, which is like in communication with the ala of central lobule. So that means this area of the anterior lobe is called as ala, which is in continuation with the central lobule part of vermis. Okay. Then, so in the posterior lobe, see this green in color, whatever we see, this is the superior view and this is the inferior view. So from the superior view, the subdivisions of the vermis, as we continue, we have declive. So declive is in continuation with the simple lobule. Okay. Then we have post-central fissure. So post-central fissure, behind that, the subdivisions we have are vermis, subdivision is folium. So folium is in continuation with superior semilunar lobule. Okay, superior semilunar lobule. Then see the horizontal fissure we have seen, right, which is actually dividing the whole of the cerebrum into superior and inferior surfaces, right? So if you see the continuation of the vermis, then after folium we have like tuber. So tuber is in communication with the inferior semilunar lobule, below which we have gracile lobule. So the other subdivisions of vermis, we have pyramid and uvula. Pyramid is in communication with biventral lobule. Okay. So pyramid will be in communication with biventral lobule and uvula will be in communication with tonsil. Okay, this is tonsil. Okay, here we will get the uvula. Okay, and here we will have pyramid. Okay, and the biventral lobule. So overall, if you just see, there is a code. Okay, so of the subdivisions of vermis, which is start from here, from the anterior lobe, we have LC, okay, then C, D, F, T, PU, and the last one comes as N, that is the nodulus, LCCD, okay. So LC, lingula, central lobule, culmen, declive, then folium, tuber, okay. Then you have pyramid, uvula, and nodule. Okay, so LCCD, FTPUN are the names which are given to the subdivisions of vermis. Correspondingly, we will see the continuity with the cerebellar hemisphere. Okay, L lingula has no communication with the cerebellar hemisphere, whereas central lobules continuation you call as ala and so on. Okay, so the subdivisions of the lobes is very, very important. You should know the names of the subdivisions of vermis and then you should know the continuation of the cerebellar hemisphere. Okay, so this is all vermis. Okay, so which I have told you L, C, C, D, F, T. This is the superior surface and on the other side we have inferior surface. Okay, so this is the superior aspect, right? So this whole of this area you can see vermis and the certain fissures like primary fissure, anterior lobe, posterior lobe. On the inferior view we can see flocculonodular lobe. This green in area, again this is also the flocculonodular lobe only. Okay, so we have anterior, posterior and the flocculonodular lobe. So cerebellum consists of outer gray matter, we know, which is cortex, and central white matter, that is medulla. So obviously medullary core is composed of incoming and outgoing fibers projecting to and from the cerebellar cortex, isn't it? I told you. Then, so this is the gray matter and white matter. So in the histology lecture also we have studied cerebellar cortex has three layers: MPG, molecular layer, Purkinje cell layer, and granular layer. Okay, corpus medullae or medullary center, deep cerebellar nuclei. I gave you one code DEFG. The same thing is here, dentate nucleus. Okay, then we have emboliform and globus nucleus comes under nucleus interpositus and the fastigious nucleus. Right? Okay. Then cerebellar cortex in the molecular layer. These are all details what we usually study in histology. In the molecular layer, we have stellate cells, which actually releases the neurotransmitter taurine, which is inhibitory. We have afferent fibers, which are parallelly arranged. We have efferent fibers coming from Purkinje cells. We also have basket cells. Okay, Purkinje cell dendrites. You can see these Purkinje cells, which we have already shown in histology as well. So histology of cerebellum. So Purkinje cells are around so many in number. So like 15 lakhs in number. So they release a neurotransmitter called as gamma aminobutyric acid, which is inhibitory. So it receives afferents from parallel fibers, climbing fibers, stellate cells, and basket cells. Efferent it gives to deep cortical nuclei. Okay. So here you also see Bergman's glial cells. I want every one of you to practice this Purkinje cell diagram. Whether it is asked in histology or whether it is asked in gross anatomy question, we should be able to draw this cell, which is flask-shaped cell. Okay, single layered. So we have dendrites going to the molecular layer where they show profuse branching. We will also see the dendritic spines. Axon goes down, synapses with deep cerebellar nuclei. So it also synapses with basket cells, stellate cells, and the vestibular nuclei. Okay. The last layer we will have is granular layer. Okay. The white matter of cerebellum consists of three types of nerve fibers. In the white matter, we will see axons of Purkinje cells, mossy fibers, and climbing fibers. For your quick review, I kept one slide of histology also where you are finding the cortex, which has gray matter, has molecular layer, Purkinje cell layer, isn't it? And then we have granular layer, M, P, and G. Molecular layer, this single layer is Purkinje cell layer, and this whole thing is granular layer. Okay, so this is gray matter. As you go inside, we have white matter. Just to emphasize more, I have put one different slide where the picture shows the collection of gray matter within white matter, that is in the medullary core. We have dentate nucleus, which is quite big, emboliform nucleus and globus nucleus, which are in the center, hence nucleus interpositus. Close to the midline, we have fastigious nucleus. Okay, so basically I will show you the peduncles and tracts in a tabular form so that you will understand better. This is a very good simple line diagram which all of you can practice, where you are able to see the subdivisions of vermis in the center. So I gave you one code L, C, C, D, F, T, P, U, N, right? So lingula, central lobule, culmen, declive, folium, tuber, pyramid, uvula, and nodule. Please memorize this. Okay. So if you just see the continuation from the lingula, there is no extension of cerebellar hemisphere. Whereas central lobule is in communication with ala, culmen is in continuation with quadrangular lobe. Okay, declive is in continuation with the here we have the simple lobulex simplex is one more name, simple lobe. Then folium is in communication with superior semilunar lobe. Okay, tuber is in communication with inferior semilunar lobe. Pyramid is in communication with biventral lobe. Uvula is in communication with tonsil. Nodule is in communication with flocculus. Okay, please practice this. Pause whatever I am telling you so that you can write in the same words. Okay. So the different colors have been given to show different areas of phylogenetical subdivision, which I have already discussed, right? Okay. So archaea is the oldest flocculonodular lobe. Whichever has been shown in pink is the paleocerebellum, which is concerned with the muscular like coordination, and the latest one, whichever has been shown in yellow color, is the neocerebellum. You can write the components also. Okay. So from this picture, actually, you can make out like we have brainstem and then we have cerebellum, right? So we know like there are communications to and fro. That means from the midbrain, you have connections to the cerebellum. From the cerebellum, we have connections to midbrain, right? So it forms the superior cerebellar peduncle. Similarly, pons also will have to and fro direction afferent efferent fibers, which forms middle cerebellar peduncle. Okay. Similarly, medulla oblongata also will have fibers running in both the afferent and efferent directions. You call it as inferior cerebellar peduncle. So we have superior, middle and inferior cerebellar peduncles. As I said, these peduncles are very, very important and they may be asked in a like very 5 marks questions. So just to make it simple, I have just put this table so that you will understand like superior cerebellar peduncle, which is connecting cerebellum to midbrain. It is receiving afferent fibers from the spinal cord in the form of anterior spinocerebellar tract. From the midbrain, it is receiving in the form of tectocerebellar. Efferent tracts basically start from the cerebellum and go to different parts of the brain. So cerebello-rubral in the sense cerebellum to the red nucleus, dentate nucleus to the thalamus makes dentatothalamic, dentate nucleus to the olivary nucleus of medulla oblongata is dentato-olivary. Then we have fastigious nucleus of the cerebellum to the reticular formation of the midbrain. Okay, you call it as fastigio-reticular. The middle cerebellar peduncle has connections from the cerebellum to pons. We have pontocerebellar, part of cortico-pontocerebellar pathway. Inferior cerebellar peduncle connects cerebellum to medulla oblongata. So we have many fibers coming to the cerebellum. So like, so we have, there is a code for you to remember it very easily. POP, 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 CV, star. POP, pop. Okay, then we have this is C and this is V, STAR. Such codes better you keep because we have extensive things to learn in anatomy. So basically these are afferent tracts coming from different parts of the brain and reaching the cerebellum. So henceforth they are named like posterior spinocerebellar. Then we have cuneo-cerebellar, olivo-cerebellar, para-olivo-cerebellar, reticulo-cerebellar, vestibulo-cerebellar, anterior external arcuate fibers, trimedullaris and trigemino-cerebellar. So these are all afferent tracts. So efferent tracts we have coming from the cerebellum going to distant parts of the brain, like we have cerebello-vestibular, cerebello-olivary and cerebello-reticular. Here we have few pictures of CT scan of brain where you can see the cerebellum. Here you can see the cerebellum. This is cerebellum. This area is cerebellum. Here also different levels the section has been taken. Okay. So this is MRI picture of cerebellum. Here it is very clear. You can see, isn't it? So these are the different levels we have. So you can see MRI pictures. These also show the levels of cerebellum. Okay. Now functions of cerebellum, like basically we have studied in physiology as well, like it helps in the maintenance of equilibrium, balance, posture, eye movement, coordination of half automatic movements of walking, posture maintenance, gait, adjustment of muscle tone, motor learning, motor skills, and cognitive functions. So this balancing is very, very important, and it is maintained by the cerebellum. Okay, the motor skills, what we have, they are all controlled by the cerebellum. So suppose if cerebellum is damaged, there are certain syndromes like ataxia. You will see there will be incoordination of movement, decomposition of movement, dysmetria, past pointing. I'll show you a few pictures. Dysdiadochokinesia, rebound phenomenon of Holmes, gait ataxia, truncal ataxia, titubation, intention tremor. What is intention tremor? Suppose if person starts to do some work, he will start shivering. Hypotonia, muscle tone is reduced. Nystagmus, to and fro movements of eyeball. Okay. We have archicerebellar lesion related to medulloblastoma, paleocerebellar lesion, gait disturbance, neocerebellar lesion, hypotonia, ataxia, and tremor. So cerebellar ataxia, you can see the gait is highly disturbed. So this is the place where you have the left cerebellar syndrome. Basically, right cerebellar hemisphere controls right half of the body, left half of the cerebellum controls the left half of the body. So here you can see space to the right in standing position, steadies on the right leg, unsteady on the left leg at ataxic gait. Okay. Medulloblastoma is basically a tumor, cerebellar medulloblastoma, which involves cerebellum and medulla oblongata. So obviously the inferior cerebellar peduncle tracts will be disturbed. Hence cerebellar tumors of Vermis, you will see truncal ataxia, frequent falling. The child in this picture would not try to stand unsupported, would not let go to the bed rail if she was stood on the floor. Okay, so that type of lesions you can see. So cerebellar lesions are usually vascular, involving the blockage of blood vessels. It may be traumatic or it may be due to tumors. So if it is unilateral cerebellar lesion, ipsilateral incoordination of like upper limb, arm, intention tremors, it is terminal tremor at the end of movement as is touching nose or button the shirt becomes difficult. Ipsilateral cerebellar ataxia, lower limb, causing widespread unsteady gait. Manifestations of bilateral cerebellar lesions, you will see dysarthria, that is slowness and slurring of speech, incoordination of both arms leading to intention tremor. Cerebellar ataxia, intermittent jerky movements are staggering, wide-based unsteady gait. Nystagmus, very common feature of multiple sclerosis. It is due to impairment coordination of eye movements. So incoordination of eye movements occurs and eyes exhibit a to and fro motion. Okay, the combination of nystagmus, dysarthria, and intention tremor together we call it as Charcot's triad, which is highly diagnostic of the disease. So such clinical terms may be used in framing the essay question because cerebellum can come as an essay question. So you need to be well versed with the terminology over here. Okay. You can see this is actually helping us to understand like past pointing. This is the normal pointing, but this person is unable to point the finger with his nose with the finger. Okay, that is the past pointing. Okay, generally finger nose test is generally done to check this. So, dysdiadochokinesia, fastly if you are able to show your palm dorsum and palmar aspect of the hand, if you can do this, so that is dysdiadochokinesis. Okay, inability to execute alternate movements in rapid succession, such as pronation and supination of forearm is disturbed. This is either called as dysdiadochokinesis or adiadochokinesis. Rebound phenomenon. Patient is unable to check the action of agonist muscles by corresponding antagonists. Patient is asked to produce active flexion of forearm and then hand is held somewhat away from the face. When released suddenly, he hits his face by hand due to loss of normal check of antagonist muscles. Here, few pictures you can see to show intention tremors. He is getting shivering when he is trying to write something, isn't it? Then these are all intention tremor images. So these are three. I said it is scanning speech. Nystagmus is 2 and 4 movements of eyeball. I said, right? This picture is showing us brainstem, right? Where we have midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Unfortunately, tumors may arise there, and the tumors may press upon the nerves which are coming out. Like whichever nerve is compressed, similarly, clinical manifestations are usually found. Okay. Now coming to the arterial supply of cerebellum, we have two cerebellar, like three cerebellar arteries here. Like if you just observe this picture, when we study the blood supply of brain, we generally have from the vertebral artery, we have right and left vertebral arteries which are joining to form the basilar artery. From the basilar artery, we have many branches. From the vertebral artery also, we have many branches which are going and supplying the cerebellum. Okay. So we have superior cerebellar artery, branch of basilar artery supplies superior surface of cerebellum. We have anterior inferior cerebellar artery, branch of basilar artery supplies anterior part of inferior surface of cerebellum. Posterior inferior cerebellar artery, branch of vertebral artery supplies posterior part of inferior surface of cerebellum. Okay. So this is the base of the brain, and the blood supply of the brain also will be dealt as a separate topic. So study well. Thank you.